I'll have to spend a minute to say that I'm very honored to be invited by Dr. Wong and to be in this occasion with esteemed teachers and scholars. I really don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure they'll bail me out, so I'll just fly away. And I have to admit that Dr. Labberton was my teacher, so I have to agree 100% what he says. Speaking of that, I just share a little bit of my thoughts. Eugene Peterson, once in his introduction to the book of James, says, when Christian believers gathered in churches, everything that can go wrong, sooner or later does. So when people gathered, whatever we call it, a church or whatever social club, things will go wrong. So we have to at least accept that. And from the sharing of Dr. Labberton, I'm not in agreeing with him. Rather, I'm warmly reminded by him that, yes, the first topic we have to talk about is not about church relevance, but it's about God. God is the sustainer, God is the maker, God is the creator of everything. So first and foremost, we have to think and rethink about God first. Other than that, without this foundation, we're still talking about earthly establishment and how to be quote-unquote relevant to the people. And also, he reminds me that, and part of the problem is the fallen nature of humans, the brokenness of our lives, but we are still called and sent to this broken and sinful world, and sometimes we do more harmful things than beneficial things. But still, God sends us as his ambassador and witnesses to this world. So there is a history, I think, in the history of Hong Kong churches too. That's why there is a period that churches will encourage believers to work hard, to have an upward mobility to the upper levels of the society, so we will have a bigger influence and a wider influence to the society. So we thought there will be a good for the city. But when looking back of these past 50 years or so, we may have a different perspective of that. So there's another point that sometimes we may be just borrowing the methods from the world, from business world. We want to compete with them. We want to be like them, to be relevant, quote unquote, to the society, but end up we just like them instead of who we are. And even though he doesn't have this time to say, but from the notes that he is very frankly and harshly to say that so much of the U.S. white churches reflect the self-interest, individualistic safety and security of the culture. No wonder Christian nationalism are so prominent right now. Even in this statement, I think somehow it can apply to Hong Kong churches too, right? Of course, there's much to say. I'm sure he will speak more about that. But true, I think we do share a lot of the issues that we are facing from the Western churches and as well as the Hong Kong churches. Dr. Labberton also continues to say that the true relevance of the church must be on the ground, must be in dialogue to the contemporary life, connects the questions, pains, injustice, hopes, communion, and social transformation, stewardship of the earth, spiritual void, and more. And I am in 100% agree with that. But just like students, I have more question marks than response. I think when we are trying to talk about church relevance to the time and space that the church or local churches that they are in, I still think besides the theological foundation, there is also some preliminary steps, preliminary issues that we have to face head-on before discussing the topic of church relevance. Number one, there's an article a few years ago from the UK media, The Guardian. The topic catches my memory till now. The topic says, now is the age of rage. The age of rage. Of course, there's arguments try to argue that is it that nowadays people are more angrier than before? Of course, there are pros and cons. There are some studies and some objective observation or whatever. But yeah, in the sense that the article concludes that we can say that because we are a generation of angry people, including believers. But sometimes I feel that we really do not discuss this topic enough. Because we are believers, we just brush this aside. We want to live above this phenomenon because we have more to say to the world. But actually, I think, at least for me, maybe my problem. So we are as angry as the society. When we are reading the news, when we are hearing the voice, we are watching the YouTubes or TikToks or whatever, right? All the things happening around us, no matter it's big news or small news or the daily lives, it makes me angry. Do we admit that? If we do not deal with these raw emotions, at least to me, because not only about the emotion, but because of the maybe a hurt or puzzles or the whatever reason, we might not be ready to talk about relevance. And ironically, even after this article in the Guardian, they have an ad to encourage people to write more articles for this media. It says, when you have an army of lawyers after you, when you want to say something that some people want to stop you, come to us. We will help you. See, we are discussing about the age of rage, but on the other hand, we are still promoting a combative mentality. How we move on to the topic of relevance if we are ready to fight. That's one thing. And the second point I want to raise instead of respond is, there was a period of time that churches may try to pursue power, to want to reach out to the greater audience, because power is influence. But for the past few years, at least to me personally, when the people of God actually are also have some thirst for power too. How do I say that? Because I'm thinking that this thirst for power is not just a traditional view that we try to gain power to have a personal gain or something. A lot of people, believers or not, have the thirst for power because they want to make some changes. They want to make some differences. But without that power, whatever that is, we feel powerless. So if we do not feel some kind of power, talking about church relevance is still up there, right? Because, in Hong Kong, we have many sayings, right? 誰大誰惡誰正確. I don't know how to translate it in English, right? People who speak louder will be heard, something like that, right? Yeah, right, yeah, something like that. Without that, yeah, we feel powerless. So it leads to the third point. This is the age of rage. We thirst for spiritual power, physical power, whatever power. And leads to the third point is, this is also a time or a culture of indifference. Meeting all these big issues, right, when we are talking about injustice, about war, about race, about sexual identities, about whatever public, I think the powerlessness draw us into indifference. We don't care. Because I'm not saying, I do not agree that we are giving up. But because of this heavy sense of powerlessness, we just do not know what to do. And because of that, we are not talking about church relevance. We are talking survival. With our offices, with all the bullying because of the lack of workforce, we have all the family issues. We have the health issues because of the society is getting old. The financial uncertainties in the future. We are talking about survival instead of relevance. Who cares about relevance now? I just want to live a decent life. I just want to be a passable believer in these days and age. If we do not deal with these issues head on, talking about church relevance, just like in the 90s, we were talking about church growth. Let's do something together, right? Let's have new ministries. So, from the personal, individual faith to the public expression of our confession, at least to me, the gap is getting huge. It's getting bigger and bigger. So for a lot of believers nowadays, yeah, we are just trying to preserve ourselves not to fall into temptations or not doing something really bad. And I thank God for that. To have a bigger dream, to have a more a complex discussion. For a lot of people, we do not have the capacity anymore because our brain is just so stuffed with all these things, all these complex things already. Yeah, so to learn how to live sacrificially beyond our personal space, and then in Hong Kong context, I hope I do not offend a lot of people. We do not have much imagination. Our educational system trains us to, how do you say, the examination machine or something like that, right? Yeah, we just fill in the blanks, fill in the correct answers, and that's it. To have an imagination, well, I'm using all the words from the topic, right? Yeah, we're talking about as the Dr. Labberton beautifully say that the relevance from God, the description of the gospel, and a lot of beautiful terminologies, descriptions, words. But to a lot of people in Hong Kong, it's just a fuzzy picture. What does it look like to be a relevant church to either to American or to the Hong Kong people, right? What does it look like? We have words only. We have descriptions only. So, therefore, I do agree that not just because the difficulties of the points I presented, we stop talking about it. One of the reasons I really like Fuller is if they're allowed, they will have courageous conversation on a lot of topics to the society, not only to theological schools, but to different religious communities. I think in Hong Kong churches, at least, we should try to have a conversation to the society. And as I borrow one of the phrases that during the dinner that we talked about, even in the risk of having eggs in our face. Because we just don't talk about things. We just don't talk about a lot of things in Hong Kong churches. Therefore, the people from the outside just think we are living in a different universe, right? Or maybe from a Marvel fan, or like a multiverse, right? We are doing different things. We do not know what is going on outside, and the outside world doesn't know what's going on inside. But at least we open the door to have the courage, at least to start conversation to the society. But at least in Hong Kong, just like in America, when you're talking this year is an election year, right? Who do you vote? And they will have a fist fight, right? We are talking about politics, at least to me. If we are talking about having our personal, individual, private faith to step outside to the public, we are touching the topic of politics. But in Hong Kong churches, at what cost? Which are beneficial, which are the red line. This is still the ongoing underlying tone of church relevance to us here. But I still encourage people to use our brain, to think hard, to study hard, and learn how to imagine. Because if God is not talking about abstract kingdom of God thing, we have to do our job, use different languages to different people so we both can understand there is a concrete future in hand. If we do not give up the world right now, but to redeem, we have to use all our means, all our creative ideas, all our imagination to present to the world, to present to this Hong Kong. God is still in hand. God is still here. But we have to find our means and languages to encourage the imagination to continue. And I think that for the past few years, because of all the restriction or whatever, I see hope too, because Hong Kong people, no matter how you say, 獅子山精神, the spirit of Lion Rock, something like that, people are creative. People are creative. So keep imagining, keep thinking, keep trying things out, because we are in a moral high ground. We are not living in a different universe. We are just the same, just as weak, just as confused with the people outside, with the glass wall or whatever. It doesn't really matter. We are together. That's my humble response.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Labberton, for your excellent lecture. I will try to make it short. Some of the things actually Reverend Dr. Jacky has already said some of my points. Okay, I'll just concentrate on 3 words that Dr. Labberton has mentioned at the beginning of his talk. He mentioned that the church should be embodied, it should be credible, and it should be beautiful. And I'll just concentrate on these 3 words. And I would just want to share a little bit the difficulty of trying to do these 3 things. I am a professor here in kind of public theology, and one of the things I get to do is, my computer saying turn off. Anyway, one of the things I get to do is churches invite me to talk, and when there are some things the senior pastor, when he doesn't want to talk about that issue, he will invite me to talk about that issue because I can talk and I walk away, okay, and they can never invite me again. So I get to talk to different difficult issues, including issues about faith and politics. So I want just to share how difficult sometimes it is to have a gospel message which is both embodied, credible, and beautiful. Start with embodied. The difficulty with embodied gospel or gospel message, whether in words or in deeds, is sometimes it can be very painful to be embodied. Now, there was a time when, in the 50s, Hong Kong churches is a very embodied church. It was, because we gave out a lot of food for the refugees. Those were easy days, in a sense, to be embodied. The main restriction is maybe you don't have enough money to buy enough food for those refugees. But then nowadays it's a little bit different, because today the main problem is not hunger, although there's always hungry people in Hong Kong as in anywhere else in the world. But the main issue is not, a lot of Hong Kong people are dying of hunger. The issue confronting us, a lot of it, like Reverend Jacky said, is very political. For example, some of the embodiment is enforced from above. The Chinese government tells us that the Hong Kong church should start with signification. We should have a Chinese version of Christianity. So, for example, can we have a prayer day on October 1st, our national day? Now, for some churches, if we have a prayer meeting on October 1st, it's very appropriate. We are being embodied. We pray for our nations. But for some other people in Hong Kong, that will be a sign of your political situation. Or you're trying to please or appease the Chinese government. So if you're embodied in something, you make some other people angry. Or take another example. Can we have a prayer meeting in June 4th? Dr. Labberton knows what's June 4th, right? Will police start knocking on our door if our church has a prayer meeting on June 4th? When you try to be embodied in the concerns of some group of Chinese people, sometimes it can be dangerous, sometimes it can be painful, sometimes you can make part of the church very angry. So sometimes the church don't talk about issues in the society because, like Dr. Jacky said, because it's too divisive. We don't want to get into all the pain and all the arguments. And I have no easy answer for that. I mean, it's not fair to expect Dr. Labberton to have an answer since he's not in Hong Kong. But that's something I struggle, If being embodied means a lot of arguments and pain, how embodied the church should be. Or maybe the church should talk about heaven and just be a praise and let people forget about the pains of the world. Maybe is it a better choice? I don't know. Sometimes it may be. The second thing about credible, I will try to make it really short. Sometimes when you are credible to one group of people, you become not credible to another group of people. For example, many of you know I am a board member of Society for the Truth and Light, which is respond to the LGBTQ movement. we try to deconstruct the arguments of the LGBTQ arguments. I have the experience of just writing something on Facebook because at that time there was an argument saying, we people like us, the Society for Truth and Light, they are worse than the Nazis. They want to kill all those LGBTQ people, so on. I wrote something in response to that kind of discourse, and then someone wrote on my Facebook underneath, my comment on my Facebook on the comment section. They said, if people like me, is ruling Hong Kong, we will just imprison all the LGBTQ people. I feel, so sad about it. I mean, if I said something you don't like and you think it's wrong, that's fine. Criticize me, something I've said. But you are criticizing something I've never said. I never said anything about how to treat the LGBTQ people. I just try to deconstruct some of the arguments of that movement. And that guy, whoever that person is, just assumed that's what I want to do. And I found that it's hard to be credible this way, because if you are credible to one group, the other group, the opposite group, assume all kinds of discourse that you haven't spoken. So how to be credible? Or must I choose side? If I choose to be credible to this group, I have to give up hope to be credible to another group. Must I choose side? The third point, being beautiful. I wish Dr. Labberton can say a little bit more about that. I found that is being more and more important, particularly for the younger generation today. To use the vocabulary of Jonathan Edwards, one of the greatest American theologians, the younger generation look for affections. They don't want good truth. They want words and pictures and actions that can arouse their affections. And I found the Hong Kong churches is not very good at that. I think the older generation, are usually trained to think in a moralistic way. So any issue come up, the first question they ask, is it right or is it wrong? We always want to put it in a category called right or wrong. Sometimes the action of me doing that, labeling everything either as right or as wrong, looks offensive to the young people, and we break the communication without them really listening to what we are talking about. Beautiful means we do things and say things in a way that is attractive to people, appeal to their emotions, as well as proclaiming the truth. How can a church do that? Or how can a church train itself to do things in this way? I'm not sure. I honestly don't know. So this is a question I just posed to Dr. Labberton and posed to all of you in case any one of you have some wisdom to share with us. So I'll stop my sharing here. Thank you.